Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm your host, Dr. Haider Shah. On behalf of Kalwas, I would like to welcome all of you to this webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. Today we have another very interesting topic, and I'm really honored to welcome and introduce our distinguished guest speaker who is going to talk about mixed method. What is mixed method research study? How to carry out? What are the essential things you need to consider for mixed method research? Why it is important? You will get the best insight about all these things as we have an amazing guest over here who will share his best insights and right recommendation. So stay tuned because an amazing stuff are coming ahead in this session. So before we start, I would like to thank Kalwas for arranging such enlightenment sessions and for their support and providing us such a wonderful platform. The aim of Kalwas is to give you the opportunity to connect and interact with world renowned speakers, academic leaders, teachers, authors, researchers, experts, professionals, and businessmen to learn from their recommendations, suggestions, and experiences, which will create an impact when and will enable you to learn and develop yourself in order to grow and transform individually as well as to contribute to the world in a positive way. As our slogan is come, learn, and share knowledge. So today we have an amazing person as guest. He is internationally known and recognized speaker, a multi-dynamic person with amazing great qualities, having a vast experience and exposure. He's a great human being, and we always see him while contributing to the world in a different positive way. He holds a PhD, the H index, the Google Scholar is 25, the Scopus 18, and WOS is a 15. He is an associate professor at University Malaysia, Pahang, adjunct professor at University Erlangga, Indonesia, visiting professor at City University, Malaysia, visiting professor at Daffodil International University, Bangladesh, a vice president of the Society of Logistician, Malaysia. He is a former deputy dean of research and postgraduate studies to 2017 to 2019 at the Faculty of Industrial Management, University, Malaysia, Pahang. For 3 consecutive years, he has been appointed as the expert panel of funding research and development projects by the Malaysian Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. He is the editor in chief of the International Journal of Industrial Management and Journal of the Governance and Integrity at the UMP. The chief guest editor of the Journal of Sustainability, the impact factor is 3.251. Previously, he held a managerial position in the electronic industry for several years. Prior joined to UMP, he served the School of Management, University Science Malaysia as tutor 2008 to 2011 and the Graduate School of Business, University Science Malaysia as senior lecturer, head of the PhD offshore program 2012 to 2017. In addition to that, he remained head of peer review team accreditation program for the School of Business and Management in the Southeast Asia, a research committee chair and founding member of the Malaysian Association of Business and Management Scholars. Last but not the least, he's a wonderful speaker, author, teacher, researcher, trainer, professional, and above everything, a great human being. So please help me in welcoming our guest, Dr. Yudi Fernando. Welcome to the Calvas platform and thank you very much for joining us, Prof.
Thank you very much, Prof, for introductions. Let me start my presentations.
Yeah, sure, please. A gentle reminder to the audience that Prof will be presenting and he would leave time for question answer session at the end of the session. So you
All
can
right.
write in comment section or you can email us at info@thecalvas.com. So over to you, Prof. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Haider, for good introductions. And I believe that everyone now will know and understand, what is the purpose for today's talk. And also, I hope that the participant will enjoy our talk, yeah, in this meeting. So today, Prof. Haider would like to request me to talk about mixed methods. So I will deliver to you why we need to do mixed method, what are the necessary, what are assumptions on the mixed method. So basically, this is a combinations of multiple methods, or some people might call it as a triangulation. Some people might call it as multi-layer methods and many things. So what are the difference? Why is this is important nowadays? And as we know that the business research is quite complex. Yeah, so from time to time, every day, the factors remains need more inquiries, and we have to investigate further on that. So well, as I mentioned earlier, the mixed method, there's another methods that normally people do because of there is no one single best way to solve the business problem, or to investigate, or to solve the research problem, or problem that you can solve in the end of your research. Because why we need to do research? Because we want to solve the problem in the end, and we come up with the solutions. But nowadays, because of people behavior, technology, politics, socio-demographic, and as we know now, a lot of pressure on sustainability, social development goals, and many more, that makes business studies more complex than before. So that's require more resource, for example, like time, expertise, and methods. And I think most of us as a familiar or heard before about the mixed method. However, not many of us understand how to conduct it properly. When you prepare the research, you submit, or perhaps you submit for the journal or for your research grant, or for example for your PhD studies, the examiners might not happy with that, because the proper way how to conduct and to understand it is not in the right place. So would like to share with you. And the one good thing from mixed method, if you come out with a new theory, for example, like you wanted to come out with something that might produce something relevant to the theory, then you can use the mixed method study. That's you can see because of the phenomena, because of research problem, and so on and so forth. And most of the time, we have to do the mixed method because of we demand, means that the society, the public, the scholars, yeah, they demand a better understanding, better theory, whether this is right or not. Some people might thought that, oh, this is like, I think yes, or we thought that this have become, our norms. This have become, everybody know about it. So how do we ensure that what the people do is really relevant to the theory, or is that can be used to come up with a new theory? So this is now, another things that we can consider when you apply mixed method. And of course, for mixed method, we need more training, yeah, especially from multidisciplinary research, yeah, paradigm, and different approaches. So you can see that how to identify the sample selections, data collections, data analysis, and data synthesis, and how do we integrate it. So the main problem for mixed method is that how do we integrate between quantitative data that we collected with the quantitative data or otherwise. So for example, if you start with the quantitative first, and how do you integrate them? So something that people need to think about, need to consider this as the advanced level. When we talk about research paradigm, for example, like novice researcher, I can say that a PhD student, we sometimes train them to become a specialist. We didn't realize that, what we do, what the way how we train them, how do we, make them to become a specialist. Because from time to time, we tell them to look at this, narrow at this, But the issue is that do you really train yourself? Do you really train your PhD student as the thinker? Thinker means that somebody can think something that can have a value to the customer, have value to the society, have the value to other stakeholders. And most of the time nowadays, we've been driven by graduate on time, graduates sometimes by time, or whatever it is. But we might not really put the philosophy back in our PhD, for example. And you can consider that many of research, PhD research now is not really part of the basic research. And most of us, what I can notice, they claim that it's a part of basic, but it's not the basic, it's applied research. So the philosophy that I wanted to put here is the way how we think. So that's why the mixed method come to our picture, and this is of course that can guide us to a better research actions or investigation, and to understand more about the problem and solutions. We sometimes not realize it. What we wrote, what we publish, been written by the policymakers, by industry, so that should be benefit to them. So let me bring from basic concept and understanding. I know that some of you have advanced research methods classes, or you already understand more on the research methods. I bring it some elements of research paradigm that I borrow from Mark Saunders, and Crosswell as well. So let me choose four types of element in research paradigm. The first one is epistemology, second ontology, methodology, and sociology. So the four part actually can be part of the mixed method as well. So some people just simply do mixed method, quanti, quali, and quanti. They combine, they marry it together, but they not understand what are the elements of paradigm behind. So that is something we have to put it back on the philosophy part in our research. So the first thing when we talk about epistemology, what means by epistemology? Well, we should have this in our research. First, we have to understand the way how do we describe how do we come out with to know something. When we found something, how do we know that? How do we find the methods to solve the problem, for example? What are the procedure of the research? And how we knows about whether this right, it is really put properly in the reality, whether this is part of our fact and figures. How do we know about it, right? And the thing is that in epistemology also, how do we communicate to one to another? So the communication is not only about oral communication, but perhaps we might need also to describe, to express, to explain, to visualize it in written documents like journal publication, research report, and so on and so forth. So the next one is ontology. It's about assumptions. If you still remember, when you do research on the multivariate analysis, you have at least 6 assumptions that you have to fulfill. But from time to time, the new research philosophy, the new way how you solve the statistical problem, they're moving very fast. So now, for example, to test the goodness of research, you only need to test, for example, convergent validity, discriminant validity as a part of the mandatory, but it's no longer like normality test and so on and so forth, even though until today we test it, but all well integrated. So this we have to remember about assumptions. So the second one, we have to understand the essence of the social phenomena that we investigate. So we as the social sciences researcher, business management, this is we have to understand more about the people culture, about the people perceptions, about the people attitude, behavior, and so on and so forth. So the social phenomena cannot be solved by one a single techniques with a complex issue. For example, like when people wanted to use, the IR 4.0 technology. So do we really ready for that? For example, many companies still reluctant to use it. Some companies, yes, we're keen enough to do it. But however, when you go to the lower layer or the people or the organization, they actually is not really ready about it. So how do we understand the people behavior, the perception about it? So this is a part of ontology. And this can help us for data interpretation in terms of the philosophical assumptions. Move back is a methodology. It is not right actually when we write a paper and we put methodology. When I submit it to one journal, then I write its methodology is a part of my paper's publication. Then they say that it's not the right way. If you wanted to write methodology, you have to explain the other paradigm in your research. So what the right way you have to write, you have to put as a methods. So what means method? Method is the design, is a way how we conduct research. It's about the technique, the procedure of investigations. That's a method, people. So even though in the class we've been told that this is a methodology, it's a methodology, but actually it's not that right. So I getting to know about this because I submit it to the top tier journal. Then I get a feedback that the chief editor mentioned to me, it's not methodology, it's a method. Can you please manage. Otherwise, you have to explain more about the other paradigm. So the complexity of the social sciences or business management research, we have to look back on the methodology parts. So another one is anciology, is consider like ethical issues, for example, philosophical approach to this to decide the value on the right decision about it. So you can see that before you conduct a study, you have to get the ethical clearance. They might look at your set of questionnaire if you do survey research, or they can look at the number of questions. How do you ask them? Whether there is no, what I call that, violence, the ethics, and so on and so forth. So I move to another assumptions. When we talk about the paradigm, then after that we move to ethical conduct of research. For example, like theology, is about the moral obligations. How do we pursue in every human endeavor? Yeah, for example, and the ontology, for example, like what are the consequences? What are the consequences? Or the flexibility, perhaps one of a benefit of the ontology. And next one is morality. Is about intrinsic moral value inside your research. So, are we fair enough to conduct research? Are they, fair enough to find this the way? Yeah. So whether you already put it really in the balance lens. So this is a thing you have to consider. Again, before I talk about the mixed methods, I wanted to share with everyone. We are using a same perception, same language on the methodology and paradigm first before we move to the mixed method, because we cannot do a shortcut of mixed method without understand more on philosophy and paradigm. So when we talk about the philosophy, we basically can be divided into three. First one is a positivism philosophy. Second, interpretive philosophy, and the third one is realism philosophy. So there are three types of philosophy that we have to think about. Positivism, the people always think about the numbers. And do you aware about it? When you submit the journal article to the journals, majority of our reviewers, majority of our chief editors, they actually been trained as the positivism philosophy. The people been trained with the numbers. Yeah, so you can see that the people is about fact and figures, about the numbers. If there is no numbers, there is no p value, t value there, the people won't accept it. And the next one is interpretive philosophy. This is the way people how to interpret, the way how you talk, the what I call it body language. When you interview the people, people might say that then something like that. You have to interpret it, the way how people talk, have the way people, they express themselves as a part of body language. Because a business is too complex, especially when people ask, how is your boss? Do you happy working in this company? So some people might say that by look at the boss, or the peers near to them, they might say, I'm happy, but the way how look at the body language, you understand that he's not. And there are many truths and meaning of the simple facts, and they are suitable for any situation to understand our research problem further. And the next one is a phenomenology. There's a concern about the question how individuals are make sense. So if your research come up with something that might not really make sense, does this fulfill in your research? For example, like when you submit to the journal articles, then the reviewer might look at as this. Oh, seems like not make sense. How come he come out with this data? How he can conclude with this finding? The way how he do, the way how interpret might not really the proper. So this is another philosophy that the normally people look at and understand on phenomenology properly. So well, I move to the next one. That's why do I need to talk here? Because Prof. Shah mentioned about the mixed method. So let me share with you what mixed method all about. Mixed method, do we need to integrate the qualitative and quantitative? Is that it is the way because we are not happy with quantitative, then we move with qualitative? Can we just only focus with one single method? Fine, well, no problem. You can focus on one single method. But the problem is that because the business issue, the business phenomena, the people behavior are complex. We cannot solve the problem only using one single method. Or perhaps So there's a new, we need a new theory to extend the previous one. For example, extended model of A, extended model of B, and so on and so forth. Especially in Asian culture. For example, Asian cultures, for example, in the China, people might thought that Yi people, for example, Yi people in China, they love to eat while they are squitting. But when look at this, well, they might thought that other people might thought that the leader might thought that, oh, they are poor, so I have to buy stools or chair for them so they can have seat for that. But basically, it's not about poor or rich. It's because of behavior. So Yi people burn it, the chair, and sell it to other people. So because they might thought that this is not useful for them. So the next one is opportunities. It's a part of how you provide a strong voice, a shared experience, and you can explore more and enrich your data with the multiple methods. For example, you can collect the data, for example, using secondary data. Perhaps you can collect from annual report. Then after that, you analyze using the thematic analysis, and after that, you interview people, you conduct the survey, and so on and so forth. So these are multiple methods. So reach your data that you can prove that your research is a good enough and it makes sense according to the philosophy that we mentioned. And okay, the next one is we can answer it more deeply. Well, let I move to the next one. Well, what is the practicality of the mixed method research? And of course, you as a researcher, you have a control to decide whether you want to take a mixed method as your method, whether you want to take the quantitative as your method, but you have to come back with your problem statement and research questions. Does it can solve using the only single method? So some of the students, when they submitted their proposal or a papers, they claim it's a part mixed method, but the research question and the problem statement are not as a part of mixed method. So this can be obviously is not part of the mixed method. So the practical, because individual tend to solve the problem using the numbers and words. So that's most of the time. And of course, we have to deploy the skill in observing people, as well as we might need to recording the people behavior, people perceptions about it. How are we going to have it? So another approach that we have to consider in research methods, how do we collect the data? How do we analyze the data? Is that sufficient enough? How enough is enough? How valid is our qualitative data? How valid is our qualitative data? Is there any bias happen there? So these are the things I have to consider in mixed method as well. And yes, of course, we combine them quantitative and qualitative procedures or otherwise with the same study. You're using a single study, but conduct multiple methods. We call it a mixed methods. And we explore more strengths, both the qualitative and quantitative method. And of course, we somehow need to uncover relationship between a multi-phase research question as well. Understand the issue better than practical lens. So if you notice that more people from industry, they prefer to do a qualitative or what we call it consultation rather than basic research. But it's a good also for practitioners, industry people, to combine their knowledge, what they already done, what they understand, with the quantitative technique to prove it whether this model is really can be accepted, can be generalized by other country setting as well or other factors. And of course, contemporary means that from time to time, X is a keep changing. Yeah, so or Y still remain perhaps, and you might have many solutions, yeah, many way how to solve your Y. So these are another things that we have to consider is a mixed method. Well, the issue on data linkage and integrations. This is the main issue when people do the mixed method. So first, how do you capture more panoramic view of research landscapes? If you can capture more clear picture, crystal clear picture is about what do you investigate and what do you solve in the end of your research. So you're okay with that. And how do you observe phenomena from different viewpoint? For example, like mixed method can be combined. People from different background, for example, people from industrial engineering, people from environmental sciences, people from marketing, people from service management. When they look at something on, how the company behave on the now circular economy movement, for example, Yeah, so we can look at this become very interesting. I did my PhD on the mixed methods, and we managed to get the best research awards for that because we come up with one very interesting research model. We compete with other area as well. And well, the data link integration, suppose we have to understand the problem, and of course, in the end, it's all solutions. And remember, and always bear in mind, you have to solve the problem. If you don't have problem in your research and it doesn't relate to mixed method, you cannot claim it as a part of mixed method. So normally a mixed method, they use a single research paradigm, for example, whether it's a qualitative driven or quantitative driven. I know that maybe Prof. Shah, he is a very expert in quantitative, so he might use the quantitative as a main, what I call that, underpinnings in his mixed method research. And data collected and aligned using different methods within the same paradigm. There's another challenge we have to do, and we have a multiple way to address the research problem. So this is a part of the mixed method. I hope that it can be useful for you, then you can get a clear picture on the mixed method. So when we use it, all right, so basically a qualitative is more on narrative. Narrative means that we can gain insights because not every numbers can tell us about the informations in the very comprehensive way. We might need to understand about emerging issues, what are the factors, what might not include in the literature, sometimes discussed in the industry or discussed in the market. And the next one is a quantitative data collected to investigate determinants, level of adoptions, or the other way around. So that's the when we have to use our mixed method. And this is a sum checklist when you wanted to do the mixed method procedure. I borrow from Creswell. So you can see that there is some question that you should ask yourself in your checklist. If you have a basic definition of mixed methods in your research, then fine about it. And are there reasons or justification why you use the both methods? Is that in your proposal, in your paper? If yes, then you're okay with that. And does the reader have a sense of the potential use of mixed method research? Yeah. So if you or readers can sense about it, then you go ahead with that. And other criteria identified for choosing mixed method design is okay there. Sorry, typo. And then is the mixed method design identified? How do we know that? You have to write about the research process and research flow to understand more whether this is really mixed method study. You can visualize it. You can use diagrams, or you can use a research flow or whatever, right, to express the procedure of data collections. And you mentioned about chosen design. You can write also the sampling strategies of both for both a qualitative and quantitative collection method that you already mentioned in your research flow, your research design. And is there any specific analysis procedure that indicate the design? And the last two is about validations. So this is a main challenge. When people asking you, hey, your qualitative data is valid enough? Is that reliable? How do you prove it? If the people from quantitative, then you can say that's about, the composite reliability, about their AVE, for example, about their factor loading. But how are people from qualitative? Qualitative, their validation is about saturation. Saturation. When they're already saturated, people keep saying about it, so he stopped about it. So what about a narrative structure can be, fit well with your dissertations, with your thesis, and also lead you to mix methods, what I call that, the design. Well, I move to research questions. This is some specific research question that you can borrow. You can check whether you already have this as part of your mixed method. Does the research question justify use the mixed method? The first one, and is the method sequence clearly described? Which one you have to do first? Quali first or quantitative next? That have to be clear in your research questions. And is the data collection analysis clearly described in your proposal? If yes, in your method, yes, mention about it, then fine with that. Does one method dominates other, or they are equally important? Sometimes the quantitative dominance because we are from quantitative. We've been trained for quantitative. Some people might thought that, oh, this is qualitative because I'm qualitative people. Can be yes and can be no, but we have to come back again to our research question and problem statement. And do we use one method limit or confound with other methods? When, how, and whom is data integrating can be achieved? Who can help us for this, right? So this is options of a mixed method. I borrow again from John Creswell and friends. Yeah, here what he looked at that the different type of mixed method, expected outcome, and recommendation for mixed method. Well, mixed method can be divided by many way how to do it. Convergent mixed method can be done when we have a reasons to compare perspective between quantity and qualitative. Do you interested to compare? But most of the time people will not compare because each of method have their own strength. So suppose not, yeah. And the outcome here to merging the two database to show how the data converges or diverge, yeah, from one to time. So next one is explanatory sequential mixed method design. So we use the quantitative result as the basis to conduct qualitative. So what you done so far is part of the explanatory sequential mixed method. It's not only explanatory study, yeah, but explanatory is sequential mixed method. So this is the outcome to understand deeper on the quantitative result, and we proceed with the qualitative. So the next one is about developing better measurement or instrument. We can test, yeah, the measurements whether fine or get or not in the bigger sample populations. That we call it exploratory. So we explore, yeah. So normally we start with the qualitative and mixed method experimental. So we have the intervention design. So the main objective here to understand the participant view within the context and experimental interventions. Well, there are a three-way more on the research mixed method using the case study. I think most of Pakistani business school they're using a cases, yeah, to teach, to do research and so on and so forth. So you can use it the mixed method case study design or cross case analysis, yeah, to validate your data. And mixed method participatory social justice design, mostly for kind of the action research, means that you will improve from time to time, continuous improvement, right? So you can use like a participatory social justice and mixed method evaluation design. The reasons to understand the needs, yeah, for impact a program or intervention of policy. So the government actually like to have this, but the issue is that whether you really understand about this type of research or not, whether what you do now is really part of part of the research method. So this is a problem statement characteristic when you do the mixed method. For example, one data source might not sufficient. So you have to indicate in your problem statement clearly. And the result often need to be explained further. So you can have it. Maybe not indirectly you tell, but people can capture, people can understand it from your problem statement. Exploratory findings need to be generalized. It's not only about people data already saturated, but how do we test it in the bigger populations? That's another question. And primary experimental design need to be expanded or enhanced. You might need to use multiple cases. For example, you wanted to get a benchmarking. Who are the best industry? You compare, and then after that you can see that what I call that single conclusion from that. Then you can start clearly on that. And you might also need to bring your participants involved in the research. And of course, the program under investigation need to be evaluated as well. So this is a part of the characteristic. Well, I'll move to the type of mixed method design, explanatory, sequential, exploratory, sequential, and parallel. And the next one is nested. So what are they? So explanatory, we start with quantity and the qualitative. I already mentioned earlier, but I put it in a very a simple way, so you can see what are the difference between each of the mixed method design. So qualitative data is normally to explain your quantitative data. This is a very clear cut. Everybody, I think most of the time people done it explanatory. So the next one is exploratory. When you start with the qualitative and after that you test with the quantitative, right? So then you verify the data. Then parallel means that you conduct concurrently. You do qualitative, quantitative. You will not wait to complete one method, then after that you continue next. No, you do it concurrently. And nested means that either your quality or quantity is the main research design, and it's a part of the alternative paradigm to answer complementary questions. qualitative or quantitative, or quantitative with a qualitative. Yeah, so this way how we put it. So this a mixed method case study. What I mentioned to you, you can use a combinations and you can do it concurrently. You can start with quantitative research survey, then after that data analysis interpretations, and after that you see, whether your data can be matched with the qualitative survey. Yeah, you can do analysis interpretation. You see the similarities on that, and after that you look at that thematics, what I call that thematics results about it. And once you get a thematic, you can do the cross-case comparison or interpretation. Then you get a result. So this is a way how we do a mixed method case study paradigm. This one example I think is a good enough when you wanted to benchmark. How does a benchmarking? What? How does the mixed method can be conducted? So you can read this paper. We look at the purpose is to understand how factors relating. When the people start with how, most of the time it's not really all the time correct. People might thought that, oh, this how means qualitative. How do I come out with this, right? So mixed methods approach that he proposed in his research to identify the combination factors and uncover relationships. So this is, multiple research method that normally people look at on the way how you conduct mixed method. So what I can conclude from what I say, my talk just now, the study that include data type without integration, that's not mixed methods. Yeah, it's only a collection of methods. So you have to bear in mind, it's not correct. This is not. It's not mixed method. It's a collection of methods. And the strong method studies will address decision how to integrate data as well as the timing and priorities. Yeah, so Creswell mentioned about it with Plano. Yeah, and scale developments, you might need to have a rigorous qualitative analysis. I'm planning to have this again, scale development for the particular, adoptions of the theory, adoption of new technology and so on. Yeah, especially from organizational point of view, because what the theory now mentioned a lot from the end user point of view. What about the company behavior? Yeah, company, yes, of course, the human there, but the company design is actually is not because of single people design, because of the number of people, group of people design to the end. For example, like board of directors, for example, the top management and so on. And exploratory design to test or you generalize the qualitative result to larger populations, or when the new emerging research question based on the qualitative result cannot be answered by qualitative. Yeah, exploratory design to investigate the trend, yeah, and the relationship with the quantitative data and explain the reason behind the quantitative results. Or you as a researcher can develop the new question based on the quantitative result, and of course cannot be answered by another way round of methods. So, Prof. Shah, I think I'm done with my talk. If you would like to proceed with the next steps for Q&A, so I over to you, Prof.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Prof. Yudi. It was so wonderful, and the way you started it right from the philosophical way, and then very nicely you have mentioned how we are supposed to develop the deep thinker rather than the specialist. That was a wonderful article, and it was a very awakening article, I would say. And very nicely you have mentioned this elements of paradigm, the other important things, and then very nicely you have come to the qualitative and quantitative mixed method, the John Criswell, the options and the table, and you removed a very wonderful doubts of the people, particularly the researchers. They always come up with the which kind of study should be carry out, and whether we should start with the qualitative or quantitative. We had received the same questions, that they were puzzled with the thing that how can we start our mixed method. I would say that was a wonderful thing, and you have squeezed the ocean into a drop in this 1 hour session in a wonderful way, that you have given a wonderful explanation and experiences. And I loved your one of the experience that you have written a paper I mean, you mentioned the methodology, and your reviewer has commented on that. It's the methods. And I say, I usually to my the PhD class and the master's class that we grow and we learn from our mistakes. And through this way, while publishing in the top tier journal, you will get the best reviewers comment, and then it will lead you towards a better and deeper understanding. So that was a wonderful experience you shared with our audience, that yes, we have gone through this kind of journey, and we have learned from all these kind of things, and nobody is an expert from the beginning point. Become expert with the passage of time. So many things you have shown to our audience. That was a wonderful part, and that's the beauty of the expert, that they simplify the things for the audience. So very nice. Thank you very much for such a wonderful presentation and a wonderful content. I would say, what a great content. It was very simple slides, but again very loaded slides at the same time, because it contained much information in a again squeezed way. So we start with the first question, which is very interesting. Since you have done PhD in mixed methods, so you will be in better position to answer this question. The question is, dear Prof, thank you very much for such a wonderful presentation. We really enjoyed and loved your this presentation. Please guide us on literature review part. That how can we write the mixed method research in literature review? What is the sequence? Please guide us. Yes, please.
All right, thank you, Prosa. This question is very interesting. There is no one way, actually, as the best as well, how to use, how to synthesize the literature review as a part of the mixed method. What I understand, when we don't have much information about the literature or the theory that we have to do, so it's the better way for us to do the mixed method other than just research questions. So what you can do better, if you look at that, if you remember about a thematic analysis or systematic analysis, or you done, for example, like, yeah, I think systematic analysis or content analysis, you put on a table, where people research about this and that, but there is gaps that the people didn't do it. You can find also many of the theory it doesn't work, for example. So you can put it as a part of your a starting point in your literature review, right? Because we start with the gap. When we start with the gaps, and we have to bring back the theory that we use about the factors that normally people do, so you can do it. And many of our students, I know that some of us started with novice, what the professor mentioned about it just now. We tend to summarize rather than we synthesize that. And most of our PhD students, they just reporting like reporters. It's not like scientifics. It's not like scientific way. How do you look at? If you look at that, the way you experience, you submit your paper for the publications. So you can see that Tanitin is very high, even though the name's already there. Why? Because you tend to report. It's not to synthesize that. So what I mean here, you can synthesize properly, and you start with the limits, you start with the gaps of what the people not done before. You part of your, if you're part of your literature, is good enough as a starting point. So other way, if you use a mixed method, you can start with a theory as well, underpinnings theory. Of course, the organizational theory doesn't fit for one. I mean, that doesn't fit for all. So you can look at that, which part of the weakness of this theory, or perhaps you can compare theory A, theory B, theory C, and perhaps no single theory actually can be used to explain the phenomena. So this is another starting point that you can put it in your literature review. I would suggest not to summarize, but I would suggest you to synthesize it, and you can come out with a proper analysis, for example, content analysis or like theory comparisons, and this it become a good flow in your literature review. Of course, everyone have their own methods how to build their literature review sections, but the most important thing in literature, when you already answer what all about, means that definitions, concepts about the measurements, if any, and of course, what are the current debates on that? What are the current findings so that then you can move forwards on that? So this has become the combination and alternative that you can start your to build your literature review sessions in your chapter 2. Yeah. So there are a lot of ways. Prof. Haider, I. Pass back
Yeah,
to you.
very nice. Thank you very much for such an elaborative answer. And I think you have given the multiple options to the audience that yes, you are open with it and you shared your own as well. And this is how the things are in research. We have multiple ways to carry out the things, but what we have gone through, mostly we recommend it because we have a justification for it, that why we have adopted this way. So thank you very much. Very nice suggestion you have given, and definitely I'm going to recommend this thing to my students as well because these are very wonderful suggestions by you. Another very important question, Prof. They want to ask that they want to thank you again for such a wonderful presentation and such a wonderful content. They want to ask that, Prof, you have talked about in your presentation that research problem and research questions should be aligned with the mixed method. But how about the hypothesis? They want to ask that mixed method research is guided by hypothesis, research question, and problem. Are they are only separated through the research problem and research questions? Yes, please.
All right, thank you, Prosa. So if you started, for example, with quali first, so means that the hypothesis is not required, right? So if you start with the qualitative first, for example, like explanatory, you start with qualitative, and you might not really necessary to put the hypothesis there, or in fact, not necessary to have a lot of literature because not much theory mentioned about it. So that's why we wanted to use a mixed method. Oh, you also might skip what I call that assumption that much, or maybe the literature to discuss that much. If you already know about it, that people already done so much, why you need to do the mixed method other than your research question research, with your problem statement, of course. So the research questions you can use it. It's like normal study when you already have such a model from qualitative. For example, when you start the quali first, then you have a thematic analysis. Then this is the model. The model actually can be also validated by using the previous study and look at this, and of course with another method of how do you do it. And then still, when you wanted to looking for generalization, whether this can be tested in other setting, country setting, or industry as a large, then you can proceed with the quantitative. So that's like normal things. But bear in mind, of course, remember about the connection points. And then another things that you have to consider in the end, how do you summarize that? So whether that's all in line all together or not, because scientific inquiries basically can be answered by specific method if all of them well aligned and integrated. So don't missing this, missing that, and or somehow there is not connecting each other. So well, if you wanted to use quantitative as a part of testing or to generalize the finding, so you can do like usual, right? Because you already have a research model, research framework, then you can proceed as usual. But when you start with qualitative, it's not necessary. Or if you start with quantitative, then you can have a research like usual, but of course, not enough data to support your findings. Some literature might not mention about it clearly. So you wanted to dig more deeper about it. So don't worry about it. You just proceed. If you're familiar with qualitative and quantitative, then fine. But I need to remind you, don't forget on the connection point, and of course with ending point as well. And this the starting integration point and the ending point should be well ironings, and you can of course you look at from the helicopter views of how that things can be done well. So don't worry about it. You proceed as usual. If you start with quanti, then of course you should have a hypothesis, research methods, and so on and so forth. But if you start with qualitative, no need hypothesis. Somehow no need also research objective. They start with the research questions. Prosa, over to you.
Yeah, very nicely said. Again, you have given your own personal experiences in that. That's the wonderful point, and I love the way you mentioned that the connection should be there, and then how you are going to relate it at the end, which is very important thing. And I think that's the wonderful part. And mostly, yes, sir, we have seen the thesis starting with the research questions because they don't have the objectives, and they start with the question, and then again they relate back in the conclusion and discussion chapter. Very nicely said. Thank you very much. Now, again, a very interesting question. They want to have your expert opinion on that. Prof. Yudi, please share your opinion that can I adopt the interpretivism as the epistemology for a thesis with mixed method approach using semi-structure interview and survey? Yes, please.
Yes, of course. There's a components. The paradigm and philosophy is a mandatory. However, many people worry that much because they cannot fulfill all elements in their mixed method research. So the best way is if you can accommodate all paradigm assumption. But of course, we have many constraints when we do research. Time constraints, funding constraint, or for example, like if you PhD student, of course, your sponsor, right? You have to finish within the 3 years, three, 3 or 4 years. But somehow, some of us, might finish a bit late because of something that we can't control. Of course, that's a element should have in your mixed method. Then you have to ensure that all fulfill. You can explain this in your method sections, in your research methodology section. If your university of your institutions still want the research method is a part of chapter 3, and then you can mention about it. But bear in mind again, your mixed method, if you do mixed method, your chapter could be 7 chapters, could be 8 chapters, could be 10, could be, it should be more than 5 chapters. So bear in mind, ensure that the all paradigm, epistemology, ontology is there, and you also need to explain it, especially for your qualitative findings. Yeah, you mention it whether you already fulfill all the assumption or not. If yes, then okay with that, and so on and so forth. So epistemology, ontology, and sociology just now supposed to be all together under one research. But my question is that how many of us will really put these all together in research, even though mixed method? I think that's a very difficult to look at as this. Even myself, sometimes we overlook about this. We not realize that what we done actually doesn't really fulfill all the requirements. Yes, you can do interpretisms, of course, because the qualitative is interpretism. When you look at the Shah is smiling like that, then you can see that whether he's really happy or whether he just want to make me happy or what. So there's a kind of interpretism that people from positivism is lacking all about. People just look at that, oh, without the numbers, without the p value, t value, Cronbach alpha, composite reliability, we cannot accept this as a validations. But what about the people do like saturations, saturated? The people already have this like a similar opinion. Do you still want that to proceed more interview with that? How sufficient is sufficient? For example, like people in qualitative might say that 4, 5 is enough. So people in quantitative say that, oh, 4, 5 is not enough. Perhaps you need more and more and more to validate. So if the people keep saying the same thing, so how do you proceed with the rest? Yeah, so you have to stop. So that's another what I call that the way how the people look at that. And of course, interpretism is a very important. It's a both for both methods. Yeah, in your mixed method. Why? If you don't have way how to interpret the result, you might write it straightforward, and the examiners or the reviewer might look at that. Oh, that's not what he looking for. You just say that this supported by this, supported that because of this and that. There is no insights in your findings. That what people are looking for. If you look at that, a good paper, it's basically they mention about insight. It's not how rigorous of your method or your theoretical framework, but the way how you can find some things can open people eyes opening results. Oh, people said it. Oh, now I know already. That's factors is very important. So this, in the end, you might suggest to the public, society, scholars to look at this. Prosha, that I hope can answer the questions.
Yes, Prof, a superb answer to this question. Really love the way you explain it. That how sufficient is sufficient. Really, that is a wonderful phrase I learned from you. And really, that is the thing that we mostly sometimes say enough is enough, but how much enough is enough? That is the important thing. And very nicely, you have mentioned the insights is all about that. How insightful is it? And one in the previous question, you have mentioned that you have to see from the eye bird view that how the situation is and what you are offering, which is the eye opener for the audience, for the researcher. They will understand from it. And yes, the validation of the facts and figures are different thing, and then interpretivism is a very wonderful thing, and the researcher qualities, abilities,
Yes.
capabilities are very much important in that perspective. And you have to be very careful because you have given my example. Yes, the smiling could be based on multiple reasons, and you have to be sharp enough as a researcher to understand that why somebody is smiling and what are the different reasons for that, because you are there to give the best insights. Very nice. I'm really enjoying the way you are answering in depth, and you are giving the wonderful examples so that they can learn a lot. Thank you once again. There is a one question, Prof. They want to ask that, dear doctor, can you share with us mixed method articles that we can use as a guide? Prof, you can recommend right now, or you can recommend later on, and we will be adding the articles in the description section for the upcoming audience as well, so that they can go through the certain articles to have the understanding. If you would like to mention few articles, up to you, Prof.
Yes. Yes. Well, a lot of a good article that you can benchmark, of course, from the top tier journal. This I think more reliable, and you look at also many now journal publish the mixed method. I will name it for you, some of them later on, or I get through to Prof Shah later on the list of the article that you can consider. But for me, the most important sometimes you have to look at back the root of mixed methods book and understanding. I worry that most of the article they might not enough space to explain how complex the mixed method. Somehow some elements are missing there. So, but if you look at that the books or guidance given by the top scholars on the mixed method, then will be good enough. Yeah, so I worry that sometimes the article, yes, it's top tier journal article, it's a good journal, but it's not sufficient. For example, like when we write the way how we conduct mixed method in a very comprehensive, the reviewer must say that, oh, we don't have enough space to for your explanation. For you, please cut this. What I make worry sometimes when we submit paper a mixed method to the journal, when the reviewer actually is not mixed method people, they only expert in a single method. So cut this, cut there, cut this, cut there. So you cannot see the comprehensive one. My advice: go back and see the Crosswell is a guru, is a sifu in the mixed method, and you have to understand the case study by Robert Jean, and you have to look at backs, mixed method book, for example, Human Zagarans, or something like Mark Saunders. There's a kind of book that you have to read, and to get a better understanding on the mixed method. And of course, there is no one single best way to do research means method. Is to depend on your problem statement and expertise that you have. For example, if your supervisor is a mixed method people, then you can get proper guidance rather than you look at one journal or two journal, but you can compare. But my advice to you, back to the textbook is better rather than just follow whatever these people say, because the MIG method basically we doesn't demonstrate the proper or comprehensive way how do we done it. The most important is how do we balance the result between the quantity and quality, and how the result can provide an insight, something that new, that something that make people say that, oh yes, this novel, this is something new, that is something that we learn. Because maybe in Asia this is new for us, but people from for example Western, they might thought that it's a part of us. It's almost every day. For example, like in 2010 when I met Parasuraman in Sweden, when I'm mistaken, I'm very proud. I say that, Prof, you look at the service quality from the customer point of view, but now I look at from the internal point of view. At the times, not many literature about it. And you know what he say? He say, well, I'm done it so long, and now I'm not interested to look at this. So you don't see that. People from Western might thought that in whatever we look at in Asia might not really relevant anymore. So is that what we are looking for. Not to say that they are better than us, but we have to be complement each other sometimes. Yeah. So that's my recommendation to you. Definitely, I give you the list of the papers that you can have a look on that. And again, to the end, my advice back to the Sifu or Guru, mixed method Guru. Even though for me, I still reading, learn reading, make mistake, and do improvement. Prosha,
Yeah, thank you
over to
very
you.
much, Prof. Once again, the perfect answer you have given, and I'm really enjoying the way you are giving answer and relating back to your experiences, and very nicely and a wonderful manner you are relating it to the how the Western researchers and authors they see the things and what are our experiences and opinion. And I love your statement of that we should complement each other, and I believe that's the wonderful part, and we learn from it. And very nicely you have mentioned that the textbook is very important to learn, because the textbook give you in-depth understanding regarding the different things. Articles are the squeezed form of the things, we may not get the accurate picture in the articles. So once again, Prof, I really enjoyed the way you were explaining the things. What a powerful explanation you have given, and what a wonderful content you have shared with our audience. That was so great. Thank you very much. At the end of the session, Prof, we ask our guest about their message to the world. So, Prof, what is your message to the world as a speaker, author, teacher, researcher, trainer, learner, professional, and educator? Yes, please.
All right, thank you, Prosha. Basically, what I would like to highlight here in the end of my sessions is a part of message that I wanted to convey to everyone here. So the first one, never feel satisfied with what you have today. So it means that be always hungry for the new knowledge, and of course, if you already join academics, you join as academia, it's your responsibility to expand more knowledge, rather than you just use what people already done it. Explore more, understand more about it. First, be hungers about the knowledge. So second is your responsibility in your shoulders to carry that the extended new theory, extended, for example, the research model and so on and so forth. And the third one, don't forget, is network. Networking is a very important. For example, until today, I still learn from the top tiers professor. I learned how the big gurus look at this, how the top, for example, like what I mentioned just now, from west and east can combine work together. Because sometimes what we done, people might look at from different angle in the western perspective. So why not we work together? And of course, networking also lead us to the big impact rather than small impact. If you do by yourself, you do only with all your peers, your university colleagues, you will might not get a big impact. But if you work together with people from other part of the world, and the people really is very strong with that, then that can give you a lot of benefits. So I learned from the top professors. I learned how to improve the writing, improve how to investigate this, improve method. How do we ensure that our manuscript can be in line with the journal? Also, is very important. So never give up. Of course, the rejections is a come to you many times, but it's not in the end. It's a opportunity for you to improve yourself. The reviewer comment, take it positively. Never put it as a negative one or against that, because trust me, you will learn what the reviewer comment about it. You will start thinking, and then it's a good lesson that you can have rather than you do it by yourself. Prosha, that's in the end of my concluding remarks. I hope that everyone enjoy. Apologize for any my shortcoming mistake that I made during my presentation. Thank you so much for the Carl was for inviting me with this session. I'm very proud. I'm very happy to be here with everyone, especially with our host. Is a very famous host, and they can attract top scholars to talk in this forum. So I'm very happy and honored. Thank you, Prosha.
Thank you very much, and it was indeed a pleasure to have you, Prof. Because it was so eye-opening session for the people. Because mixed method is now very popular and getting popular day by day. Because as you mentioned in multiple times that we get the multiple validations, and we get the in-depth understanding regarding the different phenomena and insights. So it was a very crucial thing. And thank you very much for your precious time and for the noble cause. I really loved and enjoyed, and we have our best wishes for you for your upcoming sessions, because you are a great moderator, great host as well, the wonderful part you are doing contributing to the world. And I love the way you give the message to the world that we should be doing networking in order to have a greater impact. That's the wonderful message. We are doing the research with the colleagues and other, but when we join hands with the multiple author researchers, we get their insights and our impact becomes greater, which is the requirement of the day. I really enjoyed overall this session with you, Prof. Thank you very much. And at the end, I would say that please do follow our distinguished guest speaker, Prof. Yudi Fernando, through his research work, and you can email him for future learning and guidance. He is very generous and always ready to help the people. Moreover, powerful explanation and wonderful content which the great speaker has already elaborated will help you to learn and develop your understanding regarding the what is the mixed method. So that's all we have time for today. Thank you once again, Associate Professor Dr. Yudi Fernando. And I would also like to thank our audience who join us. If you have any additional questions about the information shared today, please email to us or connect to the speaker directly through his email or social media. Thank you all for your support and liking our session. Stay tuned as many sessions are on the way. Please do not miss any session until next